The Doc helicopters in and he helicopters out.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's episode, Impact Wrestling indefinitely suspends this guy for some comments he made. We've got Pete Dunn signing a new contract. We've got the length of that. Of course, we've got the biggest topics and trends in wrestling. We've got a brand new WWE Champion. And doing the show with me, as always, he's the guy who has to be shower fresh and does the show like Val Venus coming to the ring. He's the one. He's the only. He's the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Dude, what's with your assumptions, baby? No, I'm just freeballing it, baby. No towel needed, baby. You know, I learned something new this week, that a guy with my skill set should be doing the helicopter a lot more in public to impress the boys. I didn't know that a guy with my talents has been withholding the goods, and now I learned as an impressionable young man, as I sat and got an education this past Thursday night, that I should be doing the helicopter a lot more in public. I might do that on my way to the Lions when I go see Dan Campbell. Hey, Dan, what do you think of this? Little swivel action. He'll be like, what the hell?
I'm glad you took that in. So when we get to news and notes, you can give us a little bit more insight as to what's going on with Impact, what's going on with this representative of Impact. So I'm glad you took all that in. I can't wait to talk about that. So that's going to be saved for the end of the show, so you're going to want to stick around. But to kick this bad boy off, on Monday night, and basically all day Monday, it was teased. Big E was going to Monday Night Raw. Mind you, Big E has been a staple of SmackDown since they had the draft last year. He's going to Monday Night Raw, and he's cashing in his money in the bank. They basically told you what was going on. Big E ends up cashing in on Bobby Lashley and is now your new WWE Champion. First off, what was your reaction to it?
Well, okay, and here's what it is. And I hate to be the negative Nancy, the guy that pees in everybody's, water and things like that, but my initial reaction based on the way the day went was they just were trying to pop a rating. Yes. And,
hold on. But before we get in there, I want to know what your take was, because we have a lot to unpack with this. There was a whole lot there. So I just want your initial reaction for Big E winning. What was your initial reaction of Big E winning? Because we're going to get to all that. That is part of this story.
I knew it was coming. I'm like, okay, He teased it. I know he's doing it. I know it's the fall book. I know it's like basically the season premiere. And it just all had the recipe of like, oh, okay. And then when they announced it was going to be Randy Orton versus Bobby Lashley, okay, Bobby's going to be taxed. Big E's going to come down and win it. So you and I have been talking about it, kind of, debating whether Baby Taz could take down the title. Was he worthy? So we knew it was coming. He's the Money in the Bank holder. Who is it going to be against? And in the end, they did it against Bobby Lashley. I was a little disappointed, to be honest. I like Bobby Lashley's reign. I would have kept it till Survivor Series or Royal Rumble. He was a great champion, but hey, it's ratings. It's a season premiere. You got to do what you got to do. It was one of those things where you knew it was coming. It came. It was cool to see the pop. He earned it. He deserved it. It just wasn't the level of surprise that maybe you could have maybe optimized it with. But hey, the crowd loved it, and you got to always love when the crowd enjoys something that happens with WWE.
So same thing, right? I'm in lockstep with you. This was one of the things they basically teased it all day long. You knew what was going to happen. He deserves it. He does. Like, Big E deserves this. Like, this has been one of those things, since he got separated from the New Day, we are like, all right, cool. You can make a big star out of this. Big D has potential because he can cut a great promo. He's good in the ring. The guy's got a look. He's over with the crowd. It's about time. But like you said, Bobby Lashley's been really good at his job. He's been really good at being the main heel on Monday Night Raw. And his run, it's not like it's been a bad run. I don't think it's been great. I think bad ratings have really hurt it, but I don't think those ratings are his fault. And that's where I want to kind of transition this, because you touched on it. It's trying to pop a number. That's all they were trying to do here, is trying to pop a number. And I think that's disrespectful to Bobby Lashley as your champion. And I just don't know if it was time. To me, like you said, it felt very, very rushed, and it felt like they did it to try to grab a ratings because the ratings have been so piss poor. And again, not on Bobby Lashley. That's not Bobby Lashley's fault. I think that is really and truly because some of his stuff has been the most interesting. I think it's just bad booking all the way around. I don't think what you've got with Monday Night Raw, what you've had with SmackDown has necessarily been all that interesting. And I think we can kind of try to put this together here. I wanted to save it for SmackDown, but I think now is a great point.
Yeah. Last
night I was at a wedding, and the guy whose wedding I was at, he's a monster wrestling fan. The first time I ever met him, he was like, top 5 wrestlers ever. Go. Like, that was his first question to me ever. Like, we shook hands. He's like, hey, my name's Kevin. I say, hey, cool, my name's Adam. He's like, top 5 wrestlers ever. Go. And like, that's how he starts his conversations off. Everybody at this wedding was a wrestling fan. And at no point did they figure out a way to broadcast what was going on with SmackDown while his wedding was taking place during the middle of SmackDown. And I started talking to him as he was going around, talking to all the tables. And, I was like, SmackDown starts in like 16 minutes. You do realize that, right? He's like, screw SmackDown. He's like, I don't even watch that shit. He's like, it's horrible. And I think this is kind of where we're at with a lot of the WWE products. And everybody at the table kind of agreed. I was like, well, Rampage starts in a little bit. He's like, I'm kind of bummed I'm not watching Rampage. And
wait a minute, wait, pause. Did you say, well, I do a wrestling podcast. Make sure you tune in and subscribe to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network?
He knows. He listens. He listens regularly.
Okay, good. Very good.
So, he knows.
But we have an ADD society, so you have to remind people. Mm-hmm. Every Friday or Saturday.
Right. You're right. But here's the thing. I think this is where we're at with WWE right now.
Yeah.
It's just been booked so poorly that nobody cares. Nobody cares. So you have to broadcast that Big E's cashing in. It can't be a surprise anymore. And the fact that you took the championship off Bobby Lashley on a random Monday night instead of at a pay-per-view, it's there to pop a number. And I think that's where we're at. And it's one of those things where I think going forward, I hope WWE doesn't take Bobby Lashley out of the role of being the biggest heel on Monday night because
absolutely.
He's fantastic right now.
He's fantastic, and I think that, potentially speaking, Big E and Bobby Lashley could put on a nice program that we all could take advantage of.
I think so, too. Now, NXT we got its revamp. We got to see what the new NXT is. This new NXT will have a new champion, as Samoa Joe announced on Twitter that he was releasing his NXT Championship. Samoa Joe hurt again. It seems like his entire WWE run has been with him climbing to the mountaintop, only to be injured, to only have to release a championship. What's the next step for Samoa Joe? Where should he go? What should he do? Because I don't know if it's with WWE, at least in the role of a wrestler.
It's unfortunate because he can't stay healthy. And here's the thing that's the toughest is the company keeps making investments in him, and then he keeps getting hurt, which unfortunately causes a lot of problems because they typically will write programs a couple months in advance. And to have this happen, it's so unfortunate. It's just not meant to be in WWE in terms of giving him a belt. I think you should wrestle with WWE, but he can't have a belt. You can't give him a title. Put him in feuds, put people over. It's time for Samoa Joe, unfortunately, to start putting over some of the young cats in NXT if and when he comes back.
I don't even know if it's as a wrestler anymore. I think as a wrestler, I think he might be done. There comes a point where your body just has so many bumps, and it can only take so many bumps, and it can only do so much where it's just going to break down. We do a sports podcast, right? We do the DocNJock show, and we talk about running backs and how many times they have so many hits left in their body before they just can't do it anymore. And when the time goes, the time goes. I think for Samoa Joe, maybe the time has come and maybe the time has gone for him being an actual wrestler. I think he has a great on-air presence. I think he has a great on-screen presence. There is a role for you in wrestling. It just might not be as a wrestler, and whether that is doing commentary, whether that is doing a role with Steven Regal in NXT, whether that's doing a role like that on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. There's a role for Samoa Joe, I just think the time has come and the time has gone of him being an absolute wrestler. It is time for him to now become something else. And I think that's okay. And I think that's where he's got to transition, because too many times the company has put stock in Samoa Joe only for that stock to absolutely plummet the moment he gets the belt and becomes the champion and becomes the headliner. I think it's time to move on from Samoa Joe in the wrestling ring. But we did get NXT, they're deeming it 2.0. What did you make of this? What did you think of this? Because we were going back and forth in our group chat, and look, to me, I'm going to tell you how I felt, and then I want to know how you felt. To me, it looked like tie-dye paint cans threw up all over the screen. It had this weird vibe to it. It felt very Vince McMahon-esque.
I didn't like it. Thumbs down. Boo! I didn't like it. I don't know. It just, because you have to consider where the brand was. It was more dark and edgy. Now it's all light and fluffy.
Yes.
You know what? I think they're just opening themselves up to become fodder for embarrassment and laughter. They took a big step backward. I think NXT reached its crescendo with the Undisputed Era, with Ciampa, with Johnny Gargano. And now it's been relegated back to this kind of FCW kind of situation where you just look at it as something that's there, but I don't see where NXT is going to reach the heights of where they were before, because now when everybody that goes up to the big brand on Raw and SmackDown get kind of embarrassed and basically become developmental for AEW, it just doesn't make NXT a product anymore that I think I'm going to invest in too heavily outside of reading the reports and talking to you about it. I mean, it's basically taking a step backwards in terms of where they're at, and I hate the set. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it.
It's weird because NXT, I think between both of us, and I think a lot of the people who watch wrestling and watch a lot of the WWE product, I think they all agree NXT was a heads and tails show above what you got with Raw and SmackDown. Yeah, Raw and SmackDown had the bigger names, but the better storylines, the better wrestling, the better work was done on NXT. And now you get this, like you said, it does have that FCW vibe. It has that very, very developmental vibe. Whereas what you had
indie, baby. It's indie,
yeah,
indie vibe.
It has a very indie vibe, and you didn't necessarily get that with the old NXT. The old NXT, like you said, was dark. It was edgy. It was rough around the edges, and it was great. It was good. It was this own little slice of heaven. It was like a haven for wrestling fans who were kind of tired of the WWE bullshit, but it was like WWE light, best way I could put it. Yeah. No more. This is very WWE. This is very Vince McMahon. This is very in your face with a lot of colors, a lot of flashing lights. It's a lot of, I don't know. It kind of like hit the reset button in the middle, and like it didn't happen after a pay-per-view. Like you've had like 4 of your old NXT episodes to then just hit the reset. To me, it was jarring. I think jarring's the best way to put it. The whole setup, very jarring. I'm not a huge fan of it. And to be honest with you, if we didn't have to talk about WWE products on this show, I would watch 0 WWE products.
Right.
Just because there's nothing there for me. I would maybe tune in here and there, but there is nothing there for me. And we have one more WWE product we've got to discuss. And I wanted to know if you enjoyed the cross-promotional matchups. Like I said, Big E shows up on SmackDown, and him and Finn Balor end up wrestling with the Usos. Next week, we've got the New Day taking on Roman Reigns and the Usos. Do you like these cross-promotional matchups where guys aren't basically cemented and leashed onto whether it be the red brand or whether it be the blue brand? You're getting a little bit of a mix. I thought it felt nice to have a guy like Big E show up on SmackDown, as he's now the Raw champion, and he's not just pigeonholed on Monday Night Raw. And I think it'll be nice to see a guy like Roman Reigns show up on Monday Night Raw with the Usos.
Absolutely. I think it's great. It's new. It's fresh ahead of the draft. I think they're teasing it for the draft, so I don't know how long it's going to last for, but I think that it's always good to see the guys that are over get more airtime. And like I said, I've never been a fan of the brand splits. I've never been positive on it. I've never been high on it. Here it is. It's what it is. So we can see how it goes and things like that. But in my mind, I just want to keep seeing Big E, the New Day, AJ Styles, Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns music, it gets better every time you see it. They keep extending it, like maybe like a half a beat with the music. It's really quality stuff, and I was impressed all the way around with it. And then real quickly, just to kind of make it full circle with SmackDown, what was so disappointing with it was you saw what they were able to execute last week with the Madison Square Garden show. That show hit all the beats. You had drama. You had great wrestling. You had great matches. You had surprises. You had everything that a 2-hour television wrestling show could have. And unfortunately, the response online was similar to what I had was, if you can do this at the drop of a hat for Madison Square Garden, with Roman Reigns dropping an epic hint at, like, we run this place, with Brock Lesnar, with the way in which they infused that storyline with, how come you didn't tell Roman Reigns I was at SummerSlam? And it infused drama. It was a well-written show. But unfortunately, we're all left with, why can't you do that a little more often? Because then the following shows just kind of have that dip of intrigue and stuff like that. So that's the big problem people have is WWE can rise to the occasion with the talent that they have. Unfortunately, they end up going into this hokey PG product that turns people off. That Madison Square Garden show, guys, if you watch one show this year, watch it. It's a good wrestling show. It was quality, top to bottom. I loved it.
It's being able to do that consistently, and that, like you said, that's the problem. It goes from being a show that is so, I guess, on brand with what the wrestling community wants to then being something that is so on brand with what WWE gives. And I think that is where we are as a wrestling community, where we're kind of at this crossroads with WWE, and where I think us as fans are tired of kind of bumping our heads against a wall, trying to get what it is that's good. And I think that's where AEW slides in and why it's able to take a lot of wrestling fans away from a product that has been so stubborn and so stuck in its own way, because this is what we're going to give you. This is the good shit that we want to give you, and this is what you're going to like. And really and truly, we don't like it. We just don't like it. And speaking of Roman Reigns, you said, Madison Square Garden show, you talked about it. It was pretty interesting. And it basically detailed that Roman Reigns is now entering into 2 feuds, one with Brock Lesnar and one with the Demon as Finn Balor. And it's been announced, and it has been set, when they go back to Saudi Arabia, it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. But we also here stateside will have Roman Reigns taking on the Demon and Finn Balor. Which feud has you more interested?
Well, obviously, the Demon. But with the hopes and the trepidation that Vince McMahon will trot out the Demon for the pop and then all of a sudden have him lose, because the Demon's been undefeated.
Yeah.
I think that if you want to make that pivot, the Demon should be the one that takes the belt off of Roman Reigns. You got to do it.
Yeah, I don't think you, for continuity purposes, have the Demon lose. I think it should be one of those things where, for some reason, Roman Reigns can't overcome the Demon. And, I don't even care if the Demon wins on a Sunday night and then on that next Friday. Shit, it could be even the next Monday. I don't care if he loses, but you can't have the Demon character lose. And look, I think the bigger number will be scored with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. I think that's a very interesting story, and I'm kind of sad that that's going to be your Saudi Arabia angle. I get why Vince does it. It's all about money, but I think there's a really fruitful story there if you really wanted to tell it. But again, you have a guy who's done a great job building up this character as the Demon. To then have him lose to Roman Reigns, I think would be a huge misstep. I think they're both very interesting stories. I'm interested to see what they do with the Demon, because in my mind's already made up. And you can convince me otherwise. I'm not above being convinced otherwise. There is only one way to do this without it being a mistake, and it'll be interesting. Why don't you give us your review of Impact this week?
Oh, it was great. It was the Victory Road go-home show. And it was very enjoyable. Anytime Christian Cage is on the screen, I think you have an opportunity to promote a pay-per-view. And I think it's one that fans should definitely get into seeing. I think that Victory Road has some great quality angles and things like that. You started the show with Decay versus Violent by Design, with Decay going over. I thought a match that was underrated, that I thought maybe I wasn't going to enjoy, was Petey Williams taking on TJP. it was a good technical wrestling match with Petey Williams getting the victory. I thought it was great, solid technical wrestling. Petey Williams is an established vet. Friend of the podcast, Dennis Farrell, has a great Wrestling Perspective podcast with Petey from time to time. And I think that Petey is an asset to Impact with teaching and the moves that he makes. And the match with TJP, I thought, was really interesting. I thought in regards to the setup for the main event, I thought it was awesome. It was a 10-man tag match, and Impact always does a good job of weaving in these go-home shows to get you intrigued for Victory Road. So you had Alexander, Christian Cage, Sami Callihan, and Edwards, and Chris Sabin taking on Moose, William Morrissey, Fulton, Myers, and Austin. And the action was all over the place. This weekend you're going to have, I think this Saturday, Christian Cage taking on Ace Austin. But, it's going to be, this matchup I thought was great with all the chaos and everything going on. And it was, I thought, a blockbuster match that was fully, I thought it delivered, with X Division champion Josh Alexander, Eddie Edwards.
Did the show get you intrigued enough to where people should go out and buy this pay-per-view?
Yes. In our group chat, we're always talking about Impact, their pay-per-views. They have done a good job to make it so that you want to see what goes on, and they usually end up paying it off. Alexander, Cage, Callahan, Edwards, and Sabin got the victory. It was an A-plus match, and it was a perfect conclusion. I think that Sabin and Alexander coexisting ahead of their title match, Edwards and Callahan coexisting before they battle, I thought it was great. And I think the two matches that you kind of want to highlight are Christian Cage taking on Ace Austin and Sabin taking on Alexander. I think those two matches are probably going to be worth the pay-per-view in and of itself. It was an A-plus, I thought, go-home show. One of the good positive shows of the year. I was very, very impressed. I thought it was an Impact show that was quality and maybe kind of took out the taste from some of the negativity we're going to talk about here just after AEW.
Now, it's safe to say that Impact has done a fantastic job of basically paying off their pay-per-views. Their pay-per-views have hit quite well recently. I think they are on a streak of maybe 4 or 5 where it's been a really good show. If you've bought the program or you've sat down to watch the pay-per-view, you've gone home pretty satisfied.
Yep.
So I think it's a good way. It's a good note where I think Impact does a solid job of, hey, this is what we're giving you this weekend. This is the show that we've got that built to it. And I think it usually hits a pretty good chord and it hits a pretty good number. I think another program that's done a really good job of giving solid shows. Like, it's weird when you go to sit down and you've watched 3 hours of this wrestling brand's programming and you're like, it was all pretty solid. I don't know what there is to necessarily pick from for us to really hammer on because it's all been really, really good wrestling. And it's hard to find the one thing where you're like, let's just drill down on this because it's all been very, very good. Next week, we're going to have essentially an awesome 2-day television pay-per-view. And AEW loves to do this. They love to give you pay-per-view-esque quality shows for free. You're going to get it with Dynamite. You're going to get a 2-hour Rampage next week.
Yes.
And it looks like every match is going to be incredibly special. But looking at the card going forward and looking at what we've been building to for this card, for this basically 2-day event, I think it's safe to say the one match that is really, really special and the one match that we've all, whether you realize it or not, you kind of been waiting for it. It's Bryan Danielson taking on Kenny Omega. Now, the belt is not in play here. This is just a match. And this should just be a spectacular match. This came about as Bryan Danielson got underneath the skin of Kenny Omega and egged him on. And against Don Callis' better wishes, Kenny Omega took this match. How excited are you for this match? Because I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but I'm pretty pumped up for this.
Must see. If you only get to catch one match a year, you're going to watch this because you know they're going to give him time. They're going to give him at least 20 minutes, right?
Oh,
and so
maybe
there's
even
a great
more.
maybe even more. It's going to be technical wrestling, false finishes, great high spots. And I think both these guys are going in really with one purpose. Nobody cares who wins and loses. It's just going to be about one thing. Let's bring the best out of each other, and that's what they're going to do. That's why Danielson goes there. I think that match alone lets him get excited to the point where he can focus, and you know they're going to bring the best out of each other. It's going to be a 5-star match. I'm not going to miss it. It's on Wednesday night, right? Probably at 9:30.
No, this is that is going to be your headline for Rampage, if I'm correct.
Okay, next Friday night at 9:30, it will be a great opportunity to review it, and I think it's good for us too because we can spend some time next weekend reviewing what goes down on the 2-day nights. So I'm excited for it. I mean, there's no chance it's going to disappoint. You can set off so many different storylines, so many different angles with it. So I can't wait, bro. I'm hyped. I'm hyped. It's going to be must watch, especially if you're a fan of professional wrestling.
Yeah, it's look.
Can't wait for it.
The 2-day television pay-per-view, and that's what we're going to call it. We're going to call it a 2-day TV PBV. All right. I think the way AEW has presented this has essentially, they basically gave you 2 go-home shows to set you up for what you're getting on Wednesday and on Friday night, and I think it was done fantastically. Super pumped for it.
Absolutely. Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes.
All right, Johnny Gargano's WWE contract is set to end on December 3rd. It was noted that while WWE and Gargano have not entered into extension talks, it's expected to happen during the fall. Gargano is one of the most successful NXT stars of all time, having held the NXT Championship, the NXT Tag Team Championships, 1 time each, as well as the NXT North American Championship 3 times. Now, speaking of contract extensions, Pete Dunn has agreed to a long-term contract with WWE on Tuesday afternoon. Dunn reportedly signed a 3-year deal that was said to have been personally offered to him by the former NXT UK champion by Triple H before he was sidelined with those health issues that we discussed last week. It was previously being reported that Dunn had been offered a new deal in August following the surprise contract extension in July. Now, WWE announced the days of the draft this year. SmackDown is going to take place on October 1st, and Raw is going to take place on October 4th. So kind of like you said, we're getting a little bit of crossover with some of these wrestlers prior to the draft, probably 1 or 2 more shows before the draft gets ratcheted up and takes place here. Now, WWE, they seem to come across as a bunch of babies at times, and a lot of times. We can do this, you can't do that, and if you do that to us, we're going to whine about it. On SmackDown last week, like you said with the Madison Square Garden show, Roman Reigns took a shot at AEW, and the people backstage in WWE were extraordinarily happy about this. Now on AEW this week, Christian Cage took a shot at WWE, and the people backstage at WWE were reportedly very upset. According to Bryan Alvarez on the Wrestling Observer Live, Christian's comments were met with a fair amount of anger from some of the people in WWE, even though a week prior, WWE took a blatant shot at AEW. Now, Alvarez said that someone in WWE texted me, and they were all excited when Roman Reigns made the comments last week, and the comments that the Usos made. They were so happy and that they had taken that shot. And then on Dynamite, Christian Cage turns around and takes a shot at WWE, and they were very angry. I was like, bro, come on. It goes both ways. That's just going to happen. Remember, WWE said that they were never in a war with AEW and vice versa, and those snide shots are likely to continue until probably the end of time. I loved it. I'm not sure if you took in Dynamite, and if you didn't take in Dynamite, you should go rewind it. Watch what Christian Cage says. There's nothing even masked anymore. At this point, they are throwing haymakers at each other, just trying to stir the pot. I thought it was fantastic. Now,
real fast, my thought is that Roman Reigns took like a minor jab. Christian Cage, if you're on the WWE side, he goes, "We grabbed you from a shitty developmental company." So in essence, it's more AEW won that battle. So I can see where WWE is a little bit perturbed because they've also featured Christian. They know he's a veteran. I didn't think he'd ever say that, but it was nice to hear.
I thought it was interesting, man. I thought it was great. Like, the more fuel to the fire. We all know what's going on. So let's not pretend. Let's not necessarily try to disguise it. Let's just go out. Let's just do it. Now, some things unfolded Thursday night.
Oh,
and
my God.
You took in the episode. I have not yet taken in the episode, but this has led to a little bit of backlash, and it has led to Tommy Dreamer being on the outs with Impact. So following Thursday night's episode of Dark Side of the Ring on Vice TV, Tommy Dreamer found himself, like I said, in some hot water with some controversial comments that were made on the show. Dreamer is currently employed by Impact Wrestling, and it was revealed that he was suspended earlier on Friday, and he would not be present for the company's tapings in Nashville over the weekend. In an update, PW Insider is reporting that Dreamer has been suspended indefinitely by Impact. Ed Nordholm issued an email to the company's roster and the staff announcing that Dreamer had been suspended indefinitely going forward. Nordholm noted that in the email that he was made aware of comments that Dreamer made on Dark Side of the Ring and that they were out of line with the core values of the company. Nordholm stated that Dreamer was asked to leave effective immediately from Nashville and that he would be suspended going forward. Nordholm then asked that if anyone had any concerns or questions to approach Gail Kim, Scott D'Amore, or himself. So, like I said, you took it in. You took in Dark Side of the Ring. I have yet to watch this.
Oh, yeah. It's bad.
Explain what was said in the context.
Here's the context, okay? The Dark Side of the Ring tracked down the lady that won the financial judgment from the plane. They found one of the flight attendants who openly discussed everything that happened, okay?
And this is in regards to Ric Flair, right?
Ric Flair, the plane ride from hell. She recalls everything that she saw from that ride. And obviously, Tommy Dreamer is now Tommy did say, look, this is back in the day. He put it into context that this is how the boys were. It might not have been the best way to act, but the unfortunate thing is his tone when he talked about her financial settlement kind of came off as dismissive. And he said, well, if she really wanted to be somebody that maybe solved the problem, maybe she shouldn't have took money and things like that. The tone in which he said it came off as dismissive. It came off as, you got to recall when people are telling their stories, you don't get a chance to see how the question's asked. You don't see the editing. But Tommy Dreamer came across as, this is boys will be boys, not that big. This is just, unfortunately, the product of drinking and a bad night and things like that. Ric Flair is not a sexual deviant. He's just, a guy that whips his dick out and flings it around for everybody to see like a helicopter and things like that. So they tried to tell the story fairly, but unfortunately it doesn't leave Ric Flair to be put in the best light. In that, though, it was kind of like this. Unfortunately, Ric Flair and his unit become a central figure in this, in that he likes to show it, and he likes to, show it off in a
basically
helicopter.
Ric Flair is Ric Flair, and his penis is basically his sidekick. It is its own, like you said, entity. It should have a cape. It should have a sidecar. It should have its own red carpet.
Okay, now here's the problem for Tommy Dreamer. Okay? Given this interview that he did, he in 2021, he can't be employed by a major company because of the Me Too movement and things like that. Unfortunately, this event occurred way before Me Too, way before the notion of, rights.
Let me ask you
this.
Before you go any further, does this feel like it's cancel culture? Does this feel like it is cancel culture at the highest, or is this a company that is saying, "Look, you can't say that," even though he was recounting a story from years ago? Like I said, I haven't seen it, so I'm asking because to me, Tommy Dreamer has done a ton for Impact. Tommy Dreamer does a great job on Busted Open Radio. Tommy Dreamer is a guy who seems to for the most part always have it pretty much together. And if you're asking him to talk about something that took place 15, 20 years ago, and he's going to talk about it in that light that it was going on at that time. And that's what Dark Side of the Ring does. It will find a story and it will presented to you in the light that it was unfolding at that time. That is why Dark Side of the Ring is one of the best docuseries for wrestling, because it tells you how it was back then. It's not going to try to sugarcoat it.
No, that's what Tommy Dreamer said. He said, this reeks of cancel culture when we're trying to cancel Ric Flair. He speaks on it, but it's in a flippant tone. No, there are matters in which when you're doing an interview, that you have to be aware, whether you agree or not, that there is, this PR situation in regards to race, sexuality, politics. You have to take more of a liberal stance in regards to what you say. He came off in a tone that was not appropriate, and that's what happened. He's responsible for what he says, and he's responsible for the judgment that comes from it. And when you see it, you'll see that he comes across as somebody that's more like victim blaming and defending Ric Flair and just saying that, hey, if she wanted to make a change and really take a stance, why'd she take the money? And that's just never going to be something that, when you put that tone out there, that's not going to be something that is going to be acceptable at any level in regards to Tommy Dreamer. And I hope he does get forgiven. You're going to see an apology. If he wants to come back to Impact, you will see an apology regarding his tone. I'm interested to see how Busted Open treats it when he gets on there. And it's just an unfortunate situation. But you also have to recall the context. This happened like over 25 years ago. And it's still wrong based on the events that happened. Remember, the WWE admitted it was wrong by making the settlement. And it was probably a hefty one. And they made it go away. And unfortunately, it was just one of those things where when you talk about the plane ride from hell, it's just a stain on WWE at the time. It was WWF at the time, but soon after, the company rebranded to WWE, and now it's just one of those stories that people tell of debauchery, drinking, punching, fighting, boys will be boys. But in 2021, that story would have ended up potentially canceling a wrestling company. That would never fly in this day and age. But Tommy Dreamer should have known how to handle that question. He should have said it was an unfortunate thing that shouldn't have happened, and he should have took more of a conciliatory response instead of more of that boys will be boys kind of approach. And he's now going to face the consequences. It's unfortunate, but you have to be aware of what you say, when you say it, and the culture that you're in. For Tommy Dreamer, it's unfortunate.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like I said, I haven't seen it. I can't wait to sit down and watch this. Like I said,
yes,
the Dark Side of the Ring programming is
really good,
so fantastic, and it's so well done. I've seen snips and I've seen clips, and it seems like this is like you said, doesn't paint Ric Flair in the best of light.
No.
And we all are aware of Magic Mountain. We're all aware of Ric Flair having his proclivities for boozing and women carousing. So it will, I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see. I'm wondering what my initial reaction will be to Tommy Dreamer's statements, and if it will be one of those things where he says it and I just kind of am like, yeah, what are you doing, bro? Like, you know how like when somebody says something and your skin crawls and you're just like, that's not the best thing to say. Don't care what time or day it is. Not the best move. Or if it's one of those things where I'm just kind of like, bro, this is what took place. This is how it was. He's just speaking on how it was. I don't know. It'll be interesting for you to kind of to see how I react to it.
When you see it, fill the group in. I'm curious. When you see it, fill the group chat in as to what you thought. And because once you see it from somebody else's perspective, when you go back and watch it, I'll watch it again to see how you took it in from your eyes. So let us know when you watch it what you thought about Tommy Dreamer. And if you watched it, let us know on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast.
That's going to do it for this week's Wrestling News and Notes. I'm so glad you were able to take that in. I'm so glad you were able to give that perspective and be able to kind of fill in some of those blanks because, like I said, I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm going to sit down. I am going to watch it. And like John said, if you take this in and you have watched it, or if we get you interested enough to watch it, let us know what you think about it. Tweet us, message us. We are one of the most interactive wrestling podcast, so let us know what your thoughts are.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you take in all our quality Detroit sports content. Anywhere that you find and listen to your favorite podcast, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and ours will come up. Hit that subscribe button, leave a nice review, and we greatly appreciate it. Don't miss out. Detroit Sports' most fun, interactive, wild Detroit Sports Twitter pages and podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. Going strong since 2013. Oh, baby. All right, I guess I got to put the helicopter away. No more. Or I just have to start an OnlyFans, and you got to pay for it, baby. No more free helicopters.
The Doc helicopter's in and he helicopters out.
See everybody next week.